Greetings. So in the last session, we had just started execution of configure mdm interactive.sh. The script had completed execution and the IVT was not going through then. So I just executed the IVT once again and now it is successful. So since this is only a sample, so I do not have any customizations to be added here or any LDAP configurations to be done to the image. But the case would not be the same when you are preparing an image for use in a production instance. So you need to add all your customizations and perform any other configuration that you want to be that has to be done to the WAS WebSphere application server profile here itself at the Docker container itself. So we use the Docker container and the Docker compose just for demo purposes and for configuration purposes. We also use it to find out whether there are new features in a new release when we want to try out new features in a release. But when it comes to deploying on production instances, you definitely need to deploy it on Kubernetes or OpenShift, that is a container orchestration platform. So what we are doing is preparing the image for deployment on a container orchestration platform. So we already saw that our image is Red Hat container certified, right? So this image will always run only as an arbitrary user. So in OpenShift, right, there are many projects, right, and each project has a range of IDs that will be assigned. The range of IDs will differ between the projects. So when your container starts running on OpenShift, the base ID, the least ID that's assigned for that specific project will be assigned to this container. Your container will start running as that particular user. So that user is a random user to our system, right, to our container, to our application. So we should adapt our application such that it can run with that specific random user, with any such random user. So we need to do some configuration on our system so that our executable files can be run by the random user. All files that have to be read can be read by the random user, and we also need to ensure that logs can be returned to the appropriate locations. So before doing that, once the configuration of your system is complete and once you've tested it, go to opt IBM bin and run a clear cache. So clear cache is going to clear away certain caches, the caches that are within the WAS profile, and it will also create delete certain temp folders which hold certain log files. So that's what we are doing now. You can log into the container anytime and run the start server. You can also perform any other configuration changes, but before you prepare the image for deployment on container orchestration system, you definitely need to run this script. So once this script completes execution, let us exit from the container and let us commit this container. Docker commit mdm container custom. Once this container gets committed, so when it gets committed, what we are doing is we are creating an image out of this container. All the configurations that have been done to the container will be available as part of this image. That's why we are doing this Docker commit. So once this container is committed, we need to execute a Docker file. So this is the Docker file that we have to execute. This Docker file will enable our container, the image that is created from our container, to be run by any arbitrary user. So what happens is when the container starts up, this arbitrary user will not have any name, right? So we need to give this arbitrary user a name and we need to assign him to the group root, the root group. That has to be done during the container startup on any be it Docker, be it OpenShift, we have to do this process. That's one thing we need to do, and we also need to provide appropriate read, write and execute permissions. So that's what is being done in the first half of this Docker file. In the second half of this file, we are copying only the required parts that are required portions that we need to run our container. So any container, in order for it to function, we need the application. We primarily need the application and its dependencies. So we had opt IBM MDM, we had the installation manager folders, all that were part of our Docker container, but we do not need them while we are preparing an image that can run on OpenShift, because it is sufficient if we just provide the boss folder which has all the applications on it and the dependency. The dependency is db2jcc.jar. So we are just copying only those specific parts into this container. We are having this second part for two reasons. One is, as you already know, every statement that we execute in Docker file, right, it adds a new layer. So this run statement, it will make the image size very huge, and when we do such staging, right, the image size will reduce. Also, we are reducing the size by only using the minimal number of folders that we require. That's why we are that's what is being done in the second half of the image. And as you can see here, we are using a UBI 8 as the base image here for our container. So we need to run a docker build -t mdm os dot. This file would take around 20 to 30 minutes for execution, because it's changing the permission and it's also creating one more new file out of it. This is a requisite for running the container on OpenShift or Kubernetes, such container orchestration platforms. So once this script completes execution, we need to commit that image into an appropriate image registry. So such image registries should be available with the companies which are using OpenShift. We need to upload it, push it to the appropriate image registry, so that it can then be used by the containers running on Kubernetes or OpenShift. So I'll get back to you once we complete execution of the script. Thank you.